So we were the Auckland University Neuron Transmitting Students, or the AUNTS for short. We're an Auckland Uni-based team with computer scientists and civil engineers for the Zealand Geospatial Hackathon. So we chose managing emergencies. The reason we chose that challenge is because some of the team members were actually quite involved through their own studies in those sorts of areas, so looking at things like studying earthquakes and things like that. So we created a tool that uses satellite data to detect when a flood has happened in New Zealand, where it's flooded, and also detects all the flooded areas. And then from that was able to detect estimate the risk to local infrastructure, houses, roads, and so that either local emergency help or people in the houses or concerned relatives could estimate the damage, see where the flooded areas were, and just view this all on a live map online.
We had 4 people, and each one had a different task. We had Ollie, who did the satellite image processing, which I had no idea about what this was going on. But the output went to me, and I did the GIS work, meaning overlaying different layers and see how they work with each other. That then actually went to Sam, who created this web map, which means that all the information that we created was then accessible for everyone else. And Ben, actually from the start, he was working on the report and feeding us information about the background, so we could actually frame the whole project around this one problem. Our project, or our tool, was addressing a real-life problem and a real-life solution that is for everyone. So it's not just for a particular group or a particular stakeholder. Because our tool can be used by emergency response teams, it can be used by people who are actually affected in another way, or even people who want to find out more about the event itself without being affected at all. That's why we thought it was really important to create this web map as one of our outputs, so that everyone could access the information. Let's say you want to see if you can still provide transport. You can use the tool to see if certain routes are still available. If they don't, you can start looking into alternative routes. Same goes for things like rail. If the rail tracks are flooded, then they can't be used. And one feature of our tool was not just to detect a flood that already occurred, but also to monitor floods. So imagine you have all these space data from, let's say, New Zealand or even around the world. The process of actually identifying where floods could occur can be automated, which means that the images can be directly fed into the tool, and the tool can even alert you if it sees that somewhere where maybe nobody is around at the moment, where there's water accumulating, which could potentially be a flood.
So Maxar satellite imagery was very good to use. The first most defining characteristic is the 30 centimeter resolution, which allowed us to see between houses, see roads, see even flooded banks that just wouldn't be visible with other satellites out there. Another advantage of using Maxar satellites was the multispectral data, and that allowed us to do some clever techniques with the near-infrared sort of side of the visible spectrum, of the not visible spectrum I should say, which allowed us to accurately detect which pixels were flooded in the image and which ones were not, to make the tool possible. Yeah, there's lots of future developments that are happening in the world of satellite imagery that are very exciting. The most obvious one is that the resolution of satellites is improving both spatially and temporally, and it's exciting to think that in some decades we might be able to see these events, these natural hazards happen on a maybe even an hourly basis, clouds permitted, and over the whole with a global coverage. And this seems like it very well could be the future for emergency response. There's also lots of other sort of things that can be monitored using satellite data. And just on topic of managing emergencies, you could look at things such as earthquakes, detecting those from space, and or other emergencies such as algal blooms and lakes. These both have sort of important real-world effects, and currently the methods of keeping track of them aren't as effective as they could be if they were just monitored from space, which is a very achievable task. And people have already started doing this around the world, and it would be good to see New Zealand sort of following in those footsteps.